Now, one of the things that we know is that top people have very clear self-ideals. Your self-ideal is, in its shortest terms, your idea of what constitutes a winner, a really outstanding person. Your self-ideal is made up of all the people that you have admired in your life and that you admire today, the qualities that they have. Ayn Rand once wrote that all love is a response to values. And it's something I never forgot. She said, when you really admire another person or fall in love with them, it's because they have values that are precious to you, and they represent those values. Integrity, honesty, warmth, sincerity, caring, courage, persistence, discipline. We always look up to and admire people who we feel have the qualities that we would most like to have in ourselves. That is our ideal. And there is within each person, there is a tension between the person we are and the person we would like to be. It's a dynamic tension that causes us always striving to be more. What we know is that successful people have very clear ideals, and unsuccessful people are very fuzzy. They're unclear about what their ideals might be. If you look at people who come from good homes, their ideals are successful men and women of character and values that they want to be like when they grow up. That's why the example that the parent sets for the growing child is extraordinarily important, because children think that's what you're supposed to be like when you're an adult. In the inner cities in the US and other countries, the ideal is to be a dope seller. The ideal is to have a pink Cadillac and to be a street hustler, because those are the people who are the powers within the inner city neighborhoods. So an enormous number of young people are misled, and they think, when I grow up, I want to be like that. I want to do that, and that's what happens. That's what they become. So thinking about your ideal is really, really important. It's interesting. They say that men and women who become successful in adult life are found to have read a lot of biographies and autobiographies of successful men and women when they were young. They love to read stories about men and women who had done something valuable and worthwhile with their lives. And many of you are like that. And as a result, when you read the story, you think of yourself being and doing the things that the people that you admire, successful people, have done. And those actually soak into you at an unconscious level, and they become part of your model of what a really good person would be. So that's the self-ideal. And it's very important. When you think, what are the qualities that I admire the most in other people? Those are the qualities that you are most striving to emulate as an adult. And number two is your self-image. The self-image is the way you see yourself and the way you think about yourself in the present, in the moment. You've heard of self-image psychology that says that we always perform on the outside the way we see ourselves performing on the inside. We'll talk about this, but there is no improvement in performance on the outside until you improve the picture of yourself on the inside. One of our friends, he asked me quickly if I could show him how he could be more effective in karate competitions. And I gave him a three-part way of preparing his mind, which we'll talk about later, which consists of affirmation, visualization, and physical stance. And he said he walked in totally transformed from being nervous and uneasy and unsure in competition. He won 2 silver medals the next competition. He said it was unbelievable. He said it's unbelievable the difference that making a very quick transition in your thinking makes before you go straight into competition. This, by the way, makes a powerful difference just before you go into making a sales call or applying for a job. You can bring about a very fast transition. We'll teach you that method a little bit later. But your self-image is important. All improvement in your outer world begins with improvement in your self-image. That's why if you want to be thin, they say you have to think thin. What you do is you get pictures of people with fabulous bodies, and you take a photograph of yourself and put it over their face, and put it on your refrigerator, and put it on your main mirror, and put it in your briefcase. So every time you see this fabulous body, there's your face staring back at you. And your subconscious mind takes a photograph of it and says, aha, this is what you're supposed to look like. And your appetite starts to diminish, and your appetite starts to change, and you start to become more interested in healthy foods. So it's really quite amazing. We'll go into this at great depth. Your self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. And this is the most important of all discoveries. One of the great pioneers, by the way, of self-esteem psychology is Nathaniel Branden. Nathaniel Branden has written about it. He's 81 years old. I had lunch with him on Tuesday in Los Angeles. He's not well, but I read all of his materials 30 years ago. And he did some of the pioneering breakthrough work on self-esteem, because his conclusion is, and my conclusion even before meeting him, was that your self-esteem is the determinant of your success and happiness in life. It's the most important thing of all. The best definition of self-esteem is how much you like yourself. How much you like yourself. I had a woman come up to me recently. She said, when she heard that from me, she said, she kept trying to say, I like myself. Your self-esteem can be built up by saying, I like myself, I like myself. And she couldn't say it. She said her mother treated her terribly when she was growing up, and she hated herself. She hated herself. She said, and then one day she had a breakthrough, and she said, I don't like myself, I love myself. I love myself. And it was, she said it was like the sun coming up. She felt so happy, and all the old bitterness and resentment just fell away, and she just walked around just feeling happy that she loved herself. So say it. Say, I like myself.
I like myself.
I love myself.
I love myself.
Now, wonderfully enough, every time you say, I like myself, your overall self-concept goes up. As your overall self-concept goes up, your ability to perform and your levels of effectiveness in every area of your life go up as well. So the more you like yourself, the better you do in every single area. The more you like yourself, the better a salesperson you are, the better a parent you are, the better a boss you are, the better a friend you are, the better you do any skill, the better you learn, the better your memory is, the more creative, the more ideas you have. When you have high self-esteem, I call this the reactor core of your nuclear personality. When your reactor core goes off, it explodes, and you become the best person you can possibly be, and you are just happy. And the more you like yourself, the more you like other people, and the more they like you back. The more you like yourself, the more you really like others. You see, people will often say, well, what about people who have too much self-esteem? No, there's no such thing. People who are arrogant or pushy or overbearing are not people with high self-esteem. They're people with low self-esteem engaging in compensatory behaviors. People with high self-esteem have basically, they're okay with themselves, and so what they do is they get out of themselves. They're no longer preoccupied with themselves. What are they thinking about me, and oh my God, did I do the right thing? They're quite happy with themselves, so they're into you, and they're able to focus on you. I don't know if you remember when we were in high school, there were kids who were always really popular, and everybody flocked around them like bees to honey. If you look back over the years, you realize those kids all had high self-esteem. They came from really positive families, and they were just really happy kids, and all the other kids wanted to be around those kids. And they were the presidents of everything, and the head of the teams, and the heads of the student body. Everybody wanted to promote those people and wanted to be like them. Because when you really like yourself, you like others, and you make others feel good about themselves. And you can achieve this by just saying, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. We used to say, when you get up in the morning, you start saying, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, like pumping yourself up, I like myself. And as you go through the day, say, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. When I first learned this, I'd say it 10, 20, 50, 100 times a day. My self-esteem was so low, I used to say I was so far behind, I thought I was first. And most of us start off with low self-esteem as a result of mistakes that parents make, and we'll talk about all this. So your self-esteem is the core of your personality. It's the most important thing of all, and the more you say, I like myself, the more your self-esteem goes up. You have a major reversal or disappointment or setback, or somebody's rude or dishonest with you, say, wait a minute, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. And when you say, I like myself, because your mind can only hold one thought at a time, the words, I like myself, cancel out all negative thoughts. You can't say, I like myself, and have a negative thought at the same time. So moving on, we say that you were born as pure potential. When a child comes into this world, they are unique and different from any other child that has ever existed. And we say every child comes into the world with a high need for love and touching, for love and touching. When your children are infants, they cry a lot. And one of the reasons that they cry as an infant is not necessarily because their diapers are wet or because they're hungry, is they're trying to find out, am I safe? Am I in a safe world? Am I in a secure world? Am I okay? And when the parent comes and picks them up and hugs them and touches them and talks to them, then they register at a deep level, I'm okay, I'm safe. The job of parents, especially in the first 3 to 5 years, is to build that solid self-concept like concrete so that the child knows that they are good and desirable and attractive and in a safe world. And if they have that, then they have no deficiency needs. My friend Morris Massey said that most adults spend most of their adult life trying to compensate for the deficiencies they experienced in childhood. If they didn't have enough love and touching, they're always seeking out the approval of other people. If they didn't have enough reassurance, they're constantly insecure as adults. Whenever you see an adult that is having problems, you see a problem that took place in the first 3 to 5 years. And almost invariably, it was a lack of love, a lack of sufficient love. A psychologist, a friend of mine, said if you take all of modern psychology, it can be summarized in this, is that all psychological problems stem back to love withheld. Love withheld at the critical formative times. So we say that every child needs love like roses need rain. They need sunshine. They need roses and rain and sunshine. And you cannot give a child too much love in their formative years. You cannot overdo it. There were some schools of thought said, well, you'll make this child dependent or you'll make the child a sissy. Au contraire, the exact opposite happens. When you lavish your children with love when they're young, they grow up strong and self-confident with high self-esteem, positive self-images. They feel terrific about themselves. Lack of love causes all the deficiencies that we see in adult life. The challenge is, if you look at the inner cities, and I just read a study on this, is that many of the mothers with multiple illegitimate children are also drinking and smoking dope, and the kids have no support, no encouragement. They have no nothing, and so they're set up for failure as adults. Another thing that's even worse is that sometimes one or both parents are so busy that they don't have time with the children. Did anybody see the King's Speech, by the way? Do you remember that really interesting part in there where he's asking him about his childhood, and they said he was the nanny. What did he call the nanny? Was a name for her. Anyway, the nanny would take care of them all day long, and then bring them and present them to the parents for a short time each day in the evening, and then take them away. And they said, and the nanny would always pinch him, so he would cry, and the parents wouldn't want to have anything to do with him. And so he grew up with this stutter and this tremendous sense of insecurity. Does anybody remember this? If you haven't seen the King's Speech, by the way, it didn't win all the Academy Awards, including Best Picture, by luck. You watched the movie, and you knew that no other movie had a chance. All the other movies were just good box office entertainment. When you watched that movie, you could not believe it. It was so good. And all of his problems with stuttering went back to love withheld in childhood. His father was a bastard. And his father, it even comes out, his father had been extremely aggressive and destructively critical toward him. So his father, the king, was extremely aggressive and critical toward him and berated him continuously. So he just had this terrible stutter. He came to becoming the King of England and almost incapable of speaking. And this King's Speech is, what a great picture. All right. Children are born with 2 attributes. The first attribute is they are fearless. Children come into the world totally unafraid. In fact, children only have 2 fears when they're born, the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Some parents think it's funny to drop the child, drop the child quickly, and the child screams and goes like this. They think it's funny. You can set up within the child a trauma in early childhood where the child can be afraid of falling, afraid of distances, afraid of spaces, afraid of stairs, afraid of all kinds of things by simply dropping them because they think it's funny. And of course, loud noises. Loud noises shock the child and scare the child. So you want to create an environment where those 2 don't happen. And this is experienced in the words, I can. I can. The words of fearlessness is I can. I can do anything. They run around, they touch, they taste, they feel, they grab knives, they run out into traffic, they're unafraid of it. They don't know enough to be afraid. Anybody who's ever raised children knows that for the first 10 years of your life, you have to prevent them from killing themselves because they're little suicide bombers. I mean, they just don't understand the danger that exists. We have a swimming pool, and just after we'd had our first child, some friends of ours who also had a child, she was on the phone, talk, left the doors open, the little baby crawled out into the backyard and into the pool and onto the cover on the jacuzzi and crawled into the cover and, of course, fell, and the cover then closed over the child. Talk on the phone, talk on the phone. The child was dead 30 seconds later. And, of course, the family never recovered from it. The husband and wife never recovered. They eventually divorced. It was just a terrible thing because they didn't realize you don't leave children alone. Our children were not alone for 10 years. They were never out of the sight of an adult for the first 10 years because children can kill themselves. There were bars and bolts, and Barbara still has bars and bolts on the door. She doesn't want me to go out. But the thing is that children are unafraid of anything in their formative years because they don't know enough to be afraid. The second attitude that they have, the second attribute they have is they're completely spontaneous. They laugh, they cry, they peep, they poo, they do anything they want. They're completely spontaneous, which is expressed in the attitude, I don't have to. I don't have to do anything. They're completely free spirits when they're children. So the ideal child comes into the world, they are completely fearless and completely spontaneous. And so our natural birthright is to be unafraid and uninhibited. To be unafraid and uninhibited. And we go back to the principle of control. Where do you feel most in control? In the situation where you can be both unafraid and uninhibited. When you're with people that you know and love, who know and love you, so you cannot say the wrong thing, and maybe you've had a little bit of wine or a lot, and you just become completely unafraid and uninhibited, and you're relaxed, and you're spontaneous, and you laugh, and you have a great time. This is your normal birthright. This is what all children are meant to be. And unfortunately, children learn in two ways. The first is they learn by imitation, especially of their parents, of one or both parents. Many children, surprisingly enough, will imitate one parent, and some other children will imitate another parent. We will almost see them as the mirror. Mostly the female children imitate the mother, and the male children imitate the father. But we imitate them. I remember when my children were young, they would do something, and I would say, "You stop that!" And I heard my father, who's British, would say that to me all the time. "You stop that!" with his British accent. And I say, "Oh my God, I'm doing exactly to my children what my father did to me in the same words and for the same provocation." So that's what normally happens, is we naturally spill over and bring our own experience with our parent, and we inflict them on our children. And we're not even aware that we're doing it. That woke me up, by the way. I still remember. I thought, oh my God, I do not want to do to my children what was done to me. And I started to really examine my behaviors to make sure that I did not. So they learn by imitation. Now here's an interesting point. The study recently said that children learn if they live in an orderly world by looking at their mother. If their mother seems to be in control and on top of things and calm and in charge, making decisions, they believe, this is an orderly world. If their mother is harassed and nervous and upset and angry and gets upset about little things that happen and so on, they believe that they live in a disorderly world, and they are insecure, and they have to be like that. So as adults, they will be insecure. I had this woman come up to me, and she said she worries all the time. She worries for ridiculous reasons. I said, "Your mother was a worrier, wasn't she?" She said, "How do you know that?" I said, like mother, like daughter. If your mother was a worrier, she taught you to worry at her knee. Now, little girl, this is how you worry when you grow up, okay? You take completely absurd things, you catastrophize, you blow them completely out of proportion, and you think about them all the time, okay? And, okay, mommy. And so they grow up, and as adults, they worry all the time. You sound like a genius. How did you know that about my father? How did you know that about your mother? This guy comes up to me, and he said, I've never had any confidence. I said, your father was really a bastard, wasn't he? He was always criticized. How did you know that? Well, because if you're a male and you have no confidence, almost invariably it was your father criticized you all the time. And as a result, you never had any confidence to try anything. How did you know that? Well, because the stuff we're talking about is so important, and yet it's so simple. So we say they learn by moving from discomfort toward comfort. Sigmund Freud's great breakthrough was the pleasure-pain principle, is that people move from pain to pleasure. So they move from discomfort toward comfort. And that is the child's primary motivation. When children are young, they're totally emotional, and they're always moving away from lack of love toward love. They work away from fear and criticism toward love and acceptance. And they're automatic. They're just simply moving all the time from discomfort toward comfort. We as adults, by the way, move from discomfort toward comfort all the time. It is our primary motivation. We are seeking pleasure and moving away from pain. One of the pleasures, the 7 ingredients of success, one of the pleasures is peace of mind, another is financial independence, another is loving relationships. And we always move to compensate for the deficiency that we feel that we are experiencing now. So if we feel that we don't have enough money, that becomes our preoccupation to get enough money. If we don't feel that we have enough love and security in our relationships, that becomes our preoccupation. So very early in life, children begin to develop negative habit patterns which have their roots in destructive criticism. Now, where do these negative habit patterns come from? The first one they come from is destructive criticism. It's used by parents to direct and control their children. Now, destructive criticism happens when the child is told, don't, get away from there, stop that. How many times have I told you, whack, slap, punishment? And the child has no understanding that playing with knives is dangerous. They don't understand what's going on. They only know that if I try something new, Mommy and Daddy get really mad at me and they shout at me and they hit me. So if I try something new, I'm in danger. So I've got to avoid doing anything new. I've got to avoid touching, tasting, feeling things. I can't. And they develop this feeling of I can't. And this feeling of I can't eventually moves, as we say, becomes the inhibitive negative habit pattern. We feel inhibited from trying to do things. We feel inhibited. We feel incompetent, incapable. I'm too small. I can't. And in adult life, this manifests itself. This pattern triggers the response of I can't, which creates the fear of failure. And the fear of failure is the greatest single obstacle to success in adult life. It's not that we cannot do extraordinary things with our lives. It's just that we have such fears, and the fears are irrational. They're not based on anything. They're based on childhood experiences. General MacArthur once said, there is no security in life, there is only opportunity. But unfortunately, the bottom 80% of the population are preoccupied with security, and even into the top 20%, and they think about security all the time, and they're traumatized about taking risks. Here's an interesting discovery about the fear of failure. I can't. And that is that the fear of failure is expressed in the body. And if you take the human body and you turn it sideways, so here's the body, here's the head, okay? And then you divide the human body in half, this way, that is laterally, and you get the front of the body and the back of the body. Well, the fear of failure is manifested on the front of the body. It's manifested first in the solar plexus. Your solar plexus chokes up when you have a fear-induced thought or event. And then it'll dry out your throat. And it'll often cause you to have headaches. And it will often cause your bladder to run, and you have to run and go to the bathroom. Sometimes it'll cause you phlebitis and things. It'll cause you stomach pains. It'll cause your heart to pound faster. And these are all manifestations of the fear of failure. Sometimes I would use an example of this by saying, now, the biggest single fear in America, ahead of the fear of death, is the fear of public speaking. Standing up in front of an audience and speaking. And so in order to help you overcome that fear, now this is an exercise. Beep, this is just an exercise. Beep, this is just an exercise, all right? In order for you to overcome your fear, I'm going to pick one person from this audience, and I'm going to bring you up here to speak later on in the day. And I'm not going to tell you who it is, but you'll be invited up here to speak for 5 minutes later on in the day. So I just want you to think of, if it's you, what you will say in that 5 minutes. Now, how many people felt their solar plexus go just like that? Isn't that interesting? I told you, bleep, this is just an exercise. This is a drill. This is not true. But the very idea of being called up to speak spontaneously in front of a group caused your solar plexus go. This is a manifestation of the fear of failure. Imagine what happens when you're given a business opportunity or an opportunity for a new job or a new promotion or even setting a new goal and committing yourself to embarking on a new course of action, to paying money to do something that you haven't done before, to learn a new subject. You would choke up all the way here. Pretty soon you can find yourself tossing and turning at night. What if I said I'm going to call you up tomorrow? You don't know who it is, but I'm going to be one of you, and I look at you like this, and I give you a big smile, so you think, oh my God, he's looking right at me. It's going to be me. Do you know what would happen? You'd be tossing and turning all night, thinking, oh my God, what if it's me? What if it's me? Well, you see how irrational it is? I've told you I've told you this is an exercise. It's only a drill, but even the thought of it would cause you probably to be awake at night. So this is where you experience the fear of failure. I just write FOF. I used to write follow up and close when I would say, now the third part of selling is follow up and close. I write FU and close, and I realized it didn't look too good on paper. Anyway, so So we say that the next habit pattern is the compulsive negative habit pattern. This pattern develops when children receive conditional love. Let us even say when children are the victims of conditional love. This is love that is not given unconditionally. It's given, taken away, given, taken away, given, taken away. Children respond with, I have to please other people. And so instead of saying, I don't have to, I can do anything I want, is children start saying, I have to. If I don't do this, parents say, if you don't, you're going to get it. You better do this or else. If you don't do that, you're in big trouble. And so children who are traumatized about losing the love and security of their parents start thinking, I have to do what mommy and daddy want. I have to do what they want, or they'll get mad at me. They won't love me. I won't be safe. I'll be in great danger. And so what they do is they start saying, I have to. I have to do what mommy says. I have to go now. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to, I have to, I have to. Children who have been the victims of conditional love grow up with what is called hypersensitivity. And as adults, they are hypersensitive to the opinions of other people. They can't do anything without getting the approval of others. They've got to ask other people. What if somebody disapproves? What if they don't like me? What if they're mad at me? And so they are actually like a deer caught in the headlights. When it comes to anything new or different, they're paralyzed. In selling, for example, the most important quality in selling or in entrepreneurial business is the quality of boldness. It is the quality of actually getting out there, Brett, you know what I'm talking about, and doing it, right? Instead of talking about it and planning for it. And the fear of rejection, the fear of criticism, the fear that other people may disapprove is so traumatizing that it causes people to paralyze and not try anything new or different. So, the compulsive negative habit pattern creates the fear of rejection and also the fear of criticism. This fear of rejection is experienced by adults as type A behavior. Now, there are many people here who have what is characterized as type A behavior. I'll talk about this in greater length tomorrow. But type A behavior is an obsessive desire to earn the approval of the boss. We can never earn enough approval from the boss. I've had people working for me who could have the best year in history, be #1 in the history of the company, and on January 1st, they feel that they're starting all over again. They feel that they have no success, no approval, and they're always scrambling. And what happens with type A behavior is you are trying to perform to what is called an undetermined high standard. In other words, you never know. You can never get there. You can never reach the point where you can relax because you never did get the unconditional love that you needed, and you can never get it from your boss. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. So we say that if you repeat over and over again, I like myself, your self-esteem increases and your fears will diminish. Now this is one of the great breakthrough thoughts. If you can imagine that everybody has high levels of fears as a result of childhood experiences, and your mind can only hold one thought at a time, imagine your emotions like a teeter-totter is as your self-esteem goes up, your fears go down. And the more you like yourself, the less you fear failure. The more you like yourself, the less you fear rejection. The more you like yourself, the more you realize that if you do fail, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It means you tried something that didn't work out. One of the things we say is, remember, there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. And there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. And obstacles come not to obstruct, but to instruct. Obstacles come not to obstruct, but to instruct. That's the attitude of the self-actualizing person. And in another attitude of self-actualizing persons is that they are concerned with the thoughts and feelings of others, but not overly concerned. Is they please at least themselves in all things. In other words, they say, you disapprove of me, or you reject me, or criticize me when I call on you. Well, you have a nice day. Because it doesn't bother me at all. And they just go on because they know that being rejected is not personal. When people are not supportive of you, it's not personal, it's their problem, it's not your problem. Laura Huxley wrote many years ago a book, and you don't need to read the book, you just need to have the title, and the title was, You Are Not the Target. And what it basically says is you're not the target. If people are hostile towards you, or aggressive, or unsupportive, or negative in business for any reason, it's not personal, it's their problem, it's not your problem. So what you do is you say, well, you have a nice day. And you just let it roll off your back. And the more you say, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. I encourage people when they get up in the morning to say, I like myself, I love my work. I like myself, I love my work, I like myself, I love my work. You can't say it 3 to 5 times without starting to smile. You can't even listen to me say it without smiling inside. It just makes you happy. And of course, you teach your kids to say, I like myself, I like myself. And you get them to look in the mirror and say, I like myself. And you tell your kids what wonderful people they are, and they just walk away feeling that the most important people in their life think that they are wonderful people, and they develop positive levels of self-esteem, positive self-image, positive self-concept. They see themselves, and they set really high standards for themselves in terms of realizing their ideal. So it's really important. So the more you say, I like myself, the less you fear. And if you say it over and over again, eventually you drive it down into your subconscious mind until it becomes locked in and permanent. Eventually you reach the point where you become absolutely fearless. You become absolutely unstoppable. And you do it by pushing down this message, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I love myself, I love myself. And we'll talk more about this later. Now, come to lesson number 4, all right? Before I do that, why don't we just do this one exercise? What one action are you going to take immediately as a result of what you've just learned in this session? Please write down your answer to that question on page 22. What one action are you going to take? Or what one thing are you going to do differently? And you can just write, I'm going to say I like myself 100 times a day. Now, if you're going to say I like myself, I do not suggest that you do it in public washrooms or in crowded elevators. But prior to every sales call, say, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. Prior to every phone call, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. And your confidence goes up and your fears drop. And remember, self-esteem is the foundation of self-confidence, and self-confidence is the critical determinant of success in public life. Interesting study recently, self-confidence is also the foundation of sex appeal. Did you know that? A person with high levels of self-confidence is considered to be sexy by members of the opposite sex. For some reason, they're attracted to it for whatever it happens to be. Let me give you an example. We were at the Grammy Awards a couple of months ago in Los Angeles. Incredible experience. And Mick Jagger was singing. Mick Jagger is one of the ugliest people that you can imagine. He looks like he's been beat with an ugly stick, you know, without stopping, and yet he has so much self-confidence that literally women crawl over broken glass and line up around the block to service him. I mean, it's an unbelievable thing. Yeah. No, it's an unbelievable thing because he's got so much self-confidence. It connects with some animal part of our nature. And the higher your level of self-esteem is, the more attractive you are, not only to members of the opposite sex, but the more attractive you are to other people. You know, the President of the United States, Mr. Obama, is called No Drama Obama because he seems to be so confident and completely in charge and in control of himself all the time. And people run to the voting booths and vote for him because he seems to be so confident. Why? And so we're not even going to talk about politics, but the person who has the greatest level of self-confidence exudes that confidence and it affects everybody around them. Everybody wants to be working with and for and around people who have self-confidence, and the more you like yourself, the higher is your self-confidence. So let's go on to lesson 4, your subconscious powerhouse. The conscious mind has 3 specific features. And if you take your conscious mind, we say, first of all, it is objective. In other words, it's objective, it's skeptical, it's unemotional. It is rational. It counts facts and figures, and it is discriminating. It chooses between what is better, what is worse, what is higher, what is lower, what is prettier, what is not as pretty. Now, the second one, I want you to change your word. In your workbook, it says, does it say the conscious or the subconscious? It says, does it say the subconscious? Please cancel out the sub. This was a misprint. When I saw this, I had a heart attack. This is the conscious mind. The conscious mind has 4 functions. The first function is to identify incoming data. Let's say, for example, you're walking across the street and you hear the roar of an engine. And you immediately identify that it's a truck and it's driving down the street toward you. The second thing you do, you say, okay, roar of engine is moving truck. Is you compare it with previous experiences. You look at it and you say, how fast is it going? Well, it's driving 30 miles an hour and it's a block away, it's not a problem. If it's driving 60 miles an hour and it's 60 feet away, knowing how fast a truck will cross that, then it's a problem. You compare it with your other experiences with moving vehicles. Third thing you do is you analyze the current situation. Here you are in the street. Should you jump forward or jump back? And then number 4 is you decide what action to take. If the action is jump back, then you'll find that you'll do it instantaneously. So you've all had that experience where you have a situation and you immediately analyze, compare, you identify, compare, analyze, and decide, boom, and take action immediately. You have this all the time. You have it with ordering coffee and so on. So this is the function of the conscious mind. The subconscious mind actually works, and if you take a look at the graph, oh, I went past this, let me go back. All right. Back to the compulsive negative habit pattern. The compulsive negative habit pattern, the feeling of I have to, is manifested all along the back. First of all, it's manifested in stiffness in the back. Almost all of chiropractic is aimed at adjusting your back because it's stiff and sore. The muscles become so tight because you feel under the gun, you're behind on an assignment, you're behind on a report, you've got to get something done, I have to, this pressure to perform, and the muscles start pulling, actually pulling the spine. Their muscles become so tight, they'll pull the spine out of alignment, and you'll have to go back to the chiropractor. But if the pressure is still there, you'll have to keep going back to the chiropractor. As soon as you complete the task, all the pressure goes, and the pain disappears. And so you'll feel it in the lower back, you feel it in the neck. I've got a stiff neck. You'll get stabbing pains in the back of your brain because the pressure will actually close the blood vessels and you start to have headaches. You'll get constipation. You'll get phlebitis in the legs, which can often kill you. And all of these are manifestations of the compulsive negative habit pattern. One of the things which we'll teach later, which I'll mention now, is that you can often relieve most of these problems by completing a major task. Procrastination causes you to feel this pressure of I have to, but I'm not doing it. And the worst of all is I have to, but I can't. I can't, but I have to. I have to, but I can't. And this is the source of most psychosomatic illnesses in America, this one or both in combination, is you've got this pressure to perform or this fear of failure and you're stuck between the two. I have to, but I can't. I have to, but I can't. So that's a very important thing for you to know. And as soon as you start working towards your goal, by the way, as soon as you take the first step towards your goal, the fear of failure disappears. As soon as you complete a major task, the fear of rejection disappears. At least the psychosomatic strains involved disappear.